Namaste friends and yoga lovers. Today I'm going to be demonstrating you 3 postures that are excellent for beginners. In my career as a yoga teacher, I often get complete beginners asking, how can I start doing yoga? And in my opinion, as a very long-term yoga teacher, there are a couple of things that we need to know. Oh, we have a guest today. There are a couple of things that we need to know in order to start our practice properly so that we don't injure ourselves. So let's start with these 3 basic postures. Firstly, for this practice, you will probably need a blanket or something similar, maybe a small pillow that's kind of flat that you can use. If you don't mind, my little companion will be here with me. So we will be here with Zeus, with myself, Kaya, and we will start with our very first posture. Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Remember that when we want to do a posture in yoga, the main aim is always to keep the integrity of the spine. So for Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, I am going to be on hands and knees, and I'm going to make sure that my fingers are very nicely spread, making sure that I press the fingertips into the floor and that I don't put weight in my wrists. I really want to avoid putting weight in my wrists at all costs, because that is actually what gives a lot of yoga practitioners injuries, because they put all that strain on their wrists and in the end the wrists start to hurt. So we really want to avoid that by putting the weight in the fingertips. We make the spine nice and long, neutral. Bring the belly in towards the spine, curl the toes under, and to begin with, I want to slowly shift my weight back towards the heels. You see that when I do this, I don't round my spine. So I go back without rounding, keeping the spine nice and long, and then I press my hands, lift my knees up, and come into my first downward facing dog. So I love downward facing dog as a warm-up posture as well, because here you can actually bend your knees one by one, starting to warm up the hamstrings, lengthening the hamstrings more, making sure you relax your head, drop your head, and create this nice long spine. I really want to avoid rounding the back in downward facing dog and folding all the way or dropping all the way into the chest. Both of these options are not great. I want to make sure that I have a nice long spine, that my neck can relax, and that my heels can slowly start sinking towards the mat. If that doesn't happen naturally, I can bend the knees in the beginning. That's not an issue whatsoever, okay? So this is your downward facing dog. Try to practice that first before you do anything else. As you know, Adho Mukha is an important part of the sun salutation. We practice it all the time, and imagine if you do it wrong or incorrectly. Imagine if you create this bulging in your spine all the time, or if you put all the weight on your wrists, or if you hang in your shoulder joint. Of course, eventually that is going to cause injury if you repeat it time after time again. For the next posture, I'm going to do variation on Paschimottanasana, just to continue with warming up the hamstrings and making sure that I understand the alignment of the spine. So I'm going to need a blanket, which I've put here. I folded it so that it's kind of flat, but still able to support me. And I'm going to sit on this blanket and extend my legs forwards. Now, if this is not an option for you, so if you feel that this creates too much tightness on your legs or it creates rounding in the spine, I suggest again that you bend your knees. In the beginning, this is totally allowed, okay? It's not a bad thing to bend your knees if this helps you to keep the integrity of the spine. So from here, I'm going to press my fingertips into the floor and lengthen up through the spine, keeping my feet very active, and ideally you would keep the big toes together and pull the small toes towards you a little bit. And from there, I'm going to bend forward with a nice long spine, keeping the spine as long as possible from the hips, okay? So the moment that I feel that my spine is starting to round or excessively round, this is where I stop. There is no additional benefit to drop your head in between your legs for beginners. You know, once we get into a more advanced stage of practice, there might be some additional benefits. But for now, if you stay here halfway, you will still get the lengthening on the hamstrings, you will still get the length on the spine, and you will still get the relaxing benefit of the posture. So don't push yourself and keep the integrity of the spine there. And then of course with each inhalation you can lengthen a little bit more, and with each exhalation you can fold a little deeper wherever your body allows you to go. Paschimottanasana, seated forward bending here. Don't create tension in your shoulders. And again, if you need to bend your knees slightly here, you can do so, not a problem at all. Eventually, the spine will round a little bit when we come to the last part of the pose. But like I said, for most of us, staying halfway will be more beneficial than going into the full posture. It will help you to open up your hamstrings, it will help you to feel that alignment in the spine, and it will help you to avoid injury in further more advanced practices. Okay? Our last pose is going to be standing, and it's actually the same as Paschimottanasana, but it's standing forward bending instead of seated forward bending. So I'm going to be standing here on my mat. I'm going to make sure that my feet are hip width apart. I'm going to place my hands on my hips, and I'm going to do a nice halfway forward bend from the hips. Now I'm looking at the camera, but normally you would be looking forward so that the neck is in alignment with the spine. And from here, I will keep the integrity of the spine. See how far I can bend forward, keeping the spine nice and long, or as long as possible. And if I need to, I will bend my knees and drop the head down. And then when I come out, I lengthen the spine forward again, place the hands on the hips, and come up to standing. So you see that I really want to use the hip joint as a hinge when I go forward and backwards. I suggest that you start practicing these three postures. So Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, Paschimottanasana, seated forward bending, and Uttanasana, standing forward bending, before you attempt anything else in your yoga practice. It's so important to have some of the basic elements in place so that you do not injure yourself. So you might realize after watching these couple of postures that there is more to learning yoga than it's just folding yourself in like 1,000 different pretzel positions. It's not only about flexibility, it's also about how we place the hands, how we keep the integrity of the spine. And I know so many yoga practitioners that end up injuring themselves because they just don't learn correctly. So make sure that you follow a teacher who is willing to teach you with that same level of detail and dedication so that you can do this practice correctly and with safe practices for your body, right? Remember, yoga is not a competition. It's not about being overly flexible. It's not about looking cool on Instagram, but it is about being compassionate towards yourself and learning the capabilities of your body, yeah, with time and patience. So, Mia and Zeus are going to wish you an awesome day. We hope you enjoyed this video. Say namaste. Namaste. And we hope to see you next time. Make sure to give a subscribe to my channel if you like this video, and leave a comment below with any of your questions. I'll be answering personally. Wishing you a wonderful day. Namaste. Namaste, Susu. Namaste.